Did they ever like mention like how long it's been, or do we have like a run-in with Martian Manhunter? Like,
Some of them are much more specific about the age gap, but like I said, there are other ones that do not care.
Martian Manhunter is on his Luke Skywalker arc where he's got like a cloak and he's wandering around the wilderness.
All right, yes, but spoiler, we're not going to encounter the Martian Manhunter in the issues that we're looking at. Everyone, and welcome back to the Men of Steel podcast. I'm Case Aiken, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Jmike Folson.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back indeed, or should I say, welcome to Visions from the... I'm trying to figure out a good beat on this one, but we are talking about a weird period in DC Comics history today, and we'll be doing a few episodes about this era, because today we are looking at the Legends of Dead Earth series of annuals from 1996, which were a series of annuals from DC Comics that took the perspective of the far future, telling stories about the characters from modern day DC and how it would be warped by myth and legend. And to have that conversation, we needed a comic book expert. So we are joined from We Have Issues by Keith Lehtinen.
Hello, everybody.
Keith, I knew that when we were going to talk about this one, you had to be the person to have that discussion, because today we're talking about the Supergirl issue.
Yes, I'm always on deck for Supergirl stories, 100%.
All right, but before we do our usual summation of what the actual project is, were either of you guys familiar with this era of annuals before this? Had you read it or
No.
at least like heard of it before?
Absolutely not. No.
Not at
Awesome.
all.
So, on that note, then, why don't we kick it to Jmike? And Jmike, in your words, could you describe what the overall context of this issue is? We're going to go in like beat by beat, because this one has 3 chapters.
Okay, cool. The Legend of Dead Earth Supergirl book or story. Basically, the Earth has been gone for a long time, I'm guessing. I don't know how many specific years, it just has been gone for a long time. And like the heroes and Legends of Earth have kind of like lived on. I sneak peeked, and it's Martian Manhunter telling these stories. So, but like the different symbols and ideals that they held close and dear to their hearts kind of carried on through different ways throughout the time stream. And so this one is about Supergirl and like what she stood for and her courage and beliefs impacting different people and their livelihoods in different ways. Well, 2 stories impact their lives in different ways. The space pirates, I have no idea what that one was really going on about. It's just weird. It was like, she's not even like there. They're just like, oh, a ghost. And then everyone shoots themselves. But it was still just because they were afraid of Supergirl, I guess. But yeah, it's basically it. Like her legacy lives on throughout other people's experiences. And that's kind of the entirety of this issue.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summation of what happened overall. I mean, like I said, we're going to go beat by beat on this one. But yeah, so when I pitched it to you guys, what were you kind of envisioning these books were going to be like?
I don't know what my expectation was. This was a weird era for Supergirl, which we've discussed in the past. This is kind of an era, even though it's like an unusual era for Supergirl. It's one that comes up a lot in our conversations for some reason.
Yeah, well, it's because I live in the 90s.
Yeah, right.
The conversation.
So when I found out, distant alternate future with this era and the way 90s comics were made, I'm like, this could be anything. You know what I mean? Like, it could literally go anywhere. So.
Yeah, so we should set that up for listeners who are not familiar. So this is 1996. This is the era of Supergirl being not Kara Zor-El, something way weirder.
Yeah.
Jmike, I have given this spiel several times, but I would love to hear you give the spiel. Who is the Matrix entity Supergirl, aka Linda Danvers?
So many things because we've come across it multiple times. I'm always like, what the heck is going on with this chick? And I think, yeah, this is the like the plasmoid plastic metal version of her, right?
Yes. They describe it as like a
shape-shifting,
protoplasmic matrix entity. Yeah.
yeah. This is that weird version of Supergirl, and and this is how many times have we come across this character? Like 5 or 6 so far.
A lot, particularly when we did the Death and Return of Superman. She was a major character in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a particular era for this character. She by this point had gotten her own book, and this was by Peter David, who recently passed away, so we should shout him out as a writer and creator. But in addition to getting her own book and a secret identity, the way that happened was that this protoplasmic shape-shifting entity that was supposed to be coded off of Lana Lang from an alternate reality and then sent to our reality to bring over Superman as a last-ditch attempt to prevent their world from being destroyed by 3 super Kryptonians, who that Superman ultimately had to execute Texas style by exposing them to gold kryptonite first and then green kryptonite to let them die right in front of him. And he was not affected because this was the first story to establish that kryptonite from different realities didn't affect Kryptonians from different worlds. That has since become a thing ever since, but was not a thing prior to Crisis on Infinite Earths. Anyway, so that Matrix entity Supergirl, who spent a period of time confused about her identity, then settled into the role of Supergirl, then hooked up with the clone of Lex Luthor Jr., then went nuts when she found out that he was actually Lex Luthor, or with the brain transplanted into his mind, proceeded to have several adventures where she was kind of a bitch to Superboy and like just, was a little bit holier than thou, which was weird considering the fact that she was a fairly nascent entity. Anyway, she went on to fuse with a high school student whose life was sacrificed in a satanic ritual, and the fusion of this entity with this troubled youth created what was considered an earthborn angel, and this caused the character to manifest new abilities. So she lost the ability to shapeshift. She retained the ability to shift between her human form and her Supergirl form. That was it as far as powers go.
Hey listeners, are you keeping up yet? Can you follow along with this? Because I learn about this every time we go over this, and I'm still like, what the hell?
She retained her ability to have psychokinetic blasts, her super strength, and all the basic tickets like flight, super strength, near invulnerability. I won't quite say nigh in this scenario. So she retained those abilities, but she also developed the ability to grow wings of fire and shoot flames from her eyes in a holy style. And those wings of fire could envelop her and teleport her. And so this was like a really powerful version of the character. Now, the story that we are reading here is at this point, the Earthborn Angel situation has occurred and is referenced in this story. However, the character would then go on to have her angelic self split from her, while her human self retained a small fraction of the powers, putting her at roughly the 1938 Superman leap an eighth of a mile style character who adventured for a period of time. The two characters reconnected, but then separated off, allowing the character to regain a bit more of her psychokinetic abilities and flight and so forth, before the book was untimely canceled after she had to team up with Kara Zor-El from the Silver Age comics, and then went on to see her daughter that she had with a Superman of a different dimension go into the multiverse.
I have to comment, that was one of the most insane things I've ever listened to. Just the directions. It made me so ashamed and so proud of being a comic book fan to listen to the extremes that story goes to. I was like, man, I was like, oh yeah, and then she's a protoplasmic goo, and then also she's an angel, and I'm just like, man, what's wrong with us?
I like wanted to end with like, and the aristocrats.
It's absolutely insane. I will mention with Matrix that I've heard her referred to as super goo because of the transforming nature of it. So sometimes I refer to her as super goo. So
yeah, the most famous panel of the character is definitely the shot of her getting punched by Doomsday, and just like going like all like T-1000 gooey.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that I think creates a very interesting situation for this particular book, wherein the Supergirl that they want to reference in these stories is an absolute batshit character that no one can easily describe. And they have the opportunity to do really broad strokes and make it kind of not matter which Supergirl you're talking about.
Yeah.
which I think they do a really good job of, particularly in the first story, in a way that actually surprised me looking back on it, because there's such direct parallels to the character that we're familiar with in the fact that it's a like shape-shifting entity that I was like, oh yeah, it was, you know, totally like just like Supergirl in the 90s. But the myth that the character like experiences in her head doesn't actually require that to be the version of Supergirl. It could be any version of Supergirl.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that, yeah, obviously, I think the second story would be the one I think is most on the nose about a specific one. But I do think it's a very interesting idea when you do these, you know, distant future looks. And then we now have 25 years of comics after this, 30 years of comics after this. And it's just funny how it diverges. You know, it's like, that's not the distant future, but because that Supergirl doesn't even exist anymore. But yeah, I definitely think, like you said, especially the first one, I thought it was very universal as to which Supergirl we could be talking about, because either of them could have inspired this. And I think that's really cool.
Yes. So on that note, why don't we get into our conversation about the first chapter? So the story is called The Surrogate. It's written by Chuck Dixon, which surprised me was doing a Supergirl story.
Right. Yeah. I'm not super familiar with a lot of the artists of the era, because this is before I paid attention to artists. So if you have any insight about the art, I would totally be interested in hearing about it.
The legend lives on. Dick Giordano and then finishes by George Perez. Like they're both.
I mean, George, yeah.
Yeah. Giordano is, I believe, best known for being an inker and being super senior at DC for a very long number of years.
Gotcha.
I don't remember his exact title.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So yeah, the first one, this takes up most of the book, right? Like this is like half or a little over half the book, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny because this is the one that literally talks about Supergirl the least, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's honestly done in the spirit of Supergirl the most, which is interesting. Like, yeah, I liked it. I really liked it.
Well, it's the only one that actually has like a future Supergirl.
Right. Yeah. Actually gives us the Supergirl of the sort. Yeah.
Right. So we open with a doctor that looks just like the fucking doctor from the Weapon X stuff. Like
100%.
like we're doing mad scientist, exactly what you expect in a comic book, saying bring in the next test subject or next subject. It's not a test. It's a thing that they do all the time, apparently. The next routine subject.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be crude, but that first shot of him, his chin is a ball sack. I'm sorry. That is a ball sack. like I normally don't pick apart art, but I was just like, what the hell? Like I immediately saw that. It's my first impression of the book. So yeah. It is interesting. It does very much set up this ain't your daddy's Supergirl like right away, I think.
No, it's very cyberpunk. It's opening with a scenario where like basically people are being tortured and subjected to the Matrix effectively, but rather than living out a delusion while their body is being used, their body is barely being kept alive and their brain is being forced into just being like slave labor
kind of like
on this like hell world.
The worst version of that stuff from the Avatar movies, where like their brain is in control of like the Avatar basically.
Yes, it's an exact
things.
setup there.
But I was like, are they just like getting the humans so they can snatch up and making them do the forced labor? Because like, and they like do like the wide shot. It's basically like all the humans are there in the chairs. And so I was like, maybe that's what they were doing.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what they're doing. It's and so this woman who we are witness to being subjected to it for the first time, which they note that once you're plugged in, you can't be disconnected without dying, which just adds an extra degree of horror to this whole situation. Anyway, so she goes into this like fugue state and starts like flashing back to memories of like her childhood.
Yeah, and that was probably the highlight of the story for me because it was like the hopeful moment. I really liked the story, don't get me wrong, but this is like, again, we talk a lot about the super family and the core concept being hope. You know, that's what everybody talks about, hope. And that's what a lot of people get wrong. So I do like this. There's like a hopeful nature. There's a youthful innocence here. I could have probably dealt with more than 2 pages of this?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's not very much, but they set it up very well for how little information we get.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, this girl like fantasizes about Supergirl as a concept and the story that she's told, because it is this like bastardized version that is dealing with like temporal drift, like degradation. It has this version of a Supergirl that is really just the bare bones Supergirl. Like you don't need to know like the specifics of like, well, is she a protoplasmic matrix entity, yada yada yada.
What?
Or is she just, Superman's cousin or whatever? She's just awesome. She's like a princess. Or like an angel, angel. And that specifically is, of course, the call out to the 90s version of Supergirl.
Yeah, exactly. And she's an icon. She's not a person. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's really cool. So, and from what I understand, because I did a little research about the overarching thing after we, realized we were doing this, that seems to be the whole core concept of these books, which is even if these people aren't around any longer, Martian Manhunter is basically ensured that their legend lives on. So this is a really interesting way to kind of like start that idea.
Yeah, each of the books, but this one, like this story, is a very clear example of one of the types of stories that Legends of Dead Earth does, which is here's a future version of the character inspired by the legend of the previous character.
Right.
The other style of story is someone is telling a very weird version of the story of the character. And, like here's a fantasy night version of like Azrael. But yeah, so this is doing the former. And we get this whole sequence where we see this woman's perception of being plugged into this horrific golem that is designed to work on these this very inhospitable planet that I forget the specific details on. Mostly methane atmosphere, surface degree is close to 1,000 degrees. It is a hell world, and she's been transferred into it. And they don't spend much time on the whole status quo of what just happened, because they do this all the time, because pretty much immediately she freaks out and flatlines. She dies, but her brain gets transferred into the body of this automaton, and they freak out, but at the same time they're like, oh, this is fascinating, we should study this. But the body that she inherits, because it's actually pretty capable, it can shapeshift into anything it needs. It can shapeshift into like some sort of like energy weapon form or like cutting torch or something for mining purposes. But it can shapeshift into whatever. She shapeshifts the form of it into Supergirl.
It kind of like Ivo's android at this.
Yeah. One of the cool things I note that didn't come back, and I was kind of waiting for this to be a thing, is they mentioned she's actually the last subject they have. Like they're out. And I was like, oh, what's going to happen? And that ended up not being a plot point at all.
It doesn't matter ultimately.
Like I was like, oh, okay. I was looking for plot points the entire time reading, and I was kind of really, really hoping that this young girl in her flashback gets mentioned that her mother, but her mother's obviously gone. I was kind of hoping her mother ended up being Supergirl. I was like, that'd be a fun twist. And again, but that's not this kind of story. And it was really cool to get I'm setting expectations for myself, and then when, as a reader, as an active reader, if your expectations are met, it tells you what kind of story you're reading. And I think that was really kind of cool, because it's not that kind of story. It's not going to have that happy, triumphant moment like that, but it is going to have a moment of, again, hope of a sort, so yeah.
Yeah, because we do get like a little bit of triumph, like first when she not just is the form of Supergirl, but when she like puts the S on her chest, like she and like inscribes it with her finger, and it's a very cool moment there. She's so successful, like she immediately is much faster than the other ones of these creatures, these robot forms that they call tool jerks.
Yeah, faster, stronger,
because her mind is actually in the body of it, as opposed to being like broadcast from space.
Right, exactly. There's no delay in signal,
so she's super effective. It's a very super family type scene of her like knocking over these like really big hulking robot bodies like that. That's what you expect from a Superman type character.
Yeah, totally. I really liked the description of like basically what they're doing. They're getting these natural resources, they're mining, they're doing things that are like impossible for actual humans to do. And I like what was it called? The matter cannon. I love the idea of the matter cannon. That was cool as hell. Where basically they're on this distant place. They dig up, say, titanium. They push it into this matter cannon, who shoots it at Earth so precisely that it's able to slow down in lower orbit to be collected. Which I'm like, you are firing a railgun at Earth with titanium rounds, man.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I took it
holy
as
crap.
being like a tractor beam type thing, but
Yeah, but it was very funny to me. I was like, holy crap.
yeah, it's fun, and that is a nice part where it's like, how does she know about the matter cannon? Oh God, I told her, didn't
Yeah,
I?
that was great. That was
Like,
also
let's be
very
clear,
Weapon X.
they are incompetent bad guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because they are industrialists. They're capitalists. They're not villains in the traditional sense. They don't fight for anything. So when they do have to, it's like, oh crap, what? And then they get overwhelmed, again. So
Had nobody anticipated this happening. 'Cause it's not. It doesn't seem like the smartest thing to give like these random people a uber powerful, able to transform into anything type. I want to say mech, but it's not a mech, but like body that is basically like controlled by thought. Doesn't seem like the greatest plan ever.
No, definitely not. Well, and then also this, like the matter cannon itself, they're like, well, shut it down before she uses it to fly up here. And they're like, no, it'd be too expensive to shut it down. Also, there's a chance she would just die. And that they rely on that as the option, which of course doesn't work for this situation.
yeah, I love it. The greed. It's like we could solve this, but it would be pretty expensive. Let's just roll the dice, man. It's like,
which is kind of amazing that this is a Chuck Dixon story.
no comment.
But then we get this like awesome shot of her like flying by way of the matter cannon, and we get this caption of "I'm flying, Daddy, I'm flying."
Oh my God, yes.
As she soars up and then runs on asteroids, which is again just super super family.
It's 100%.
And she arrives at the like orbital base that they're like using to mine from in space, and just like flies right through it and just sucks everyone out into space.
Yeah, I particularly like the poignant panel where she found her own dead body. I thought that was interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah, is very interesting. She's obviously like, I like the idea that the Legend of Supergirl, made it to her, but also like, unlike an episode or a story we're going to talk about in a moment, apparently the no killing rule didn't make it.
Right. Well, but she did do one thing, which is she liberated the other people.
This is true.
Everyone else who was trapped in the tool jerk link up, when they tried to amplify them so that they could fight her, they all transferred their brains as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see a shot of her like flying through space and all the tool jerks on the ground, like looking up and watching her go. So like she has at least liberated the oppressed individuals in this situation.
Yeah, that was a really great touch, because they could have told the story without doing that. But I think that really emphasized the hero of it. You know what I mean? Not just the vengeful angel that comes to destroy you because you ruined her life. She saved other people. And I thought that was a really great addition to that story to tell that.
Yeah, so I come off really liking this story. I will say I like the cover art better than the internal for how she. I like that she's silver on the cover and she's gold in the actual issue.
Yeah, I mean, I like them both. I think it's kind of cool. I honestly, when I looked at the cover, the very first thing I thought is, if her hair is metal, why is it blowing in the wind? But I mean, again, I'm a pedant, so
it's not supposed to be doing that.
It's like the cloak of billowing from D&D, the common item that just like it just billows like that's the only magic thing that's going on with it.
Yes, yeah. But no, I liked it. I thought it was cool. It's a character that I think, yeah, you could revisit this one day, for fun. Sure,
Yeah, Jmike, what were your thoughts?
When I first saw the cover, I was like, oh, it's that one. It's the weird one. We're going to have fun with this. it's the goo Supergirl. I gotcha. But yeah, they're totally different. Well, although, like, it'd be kind of funny if she ended up becoming that version of Supergirl by some weird, like, Superman Red Sun time loop type thing.
Yeah, like she crashed back into Pocket Universe Smallville that Lex Luthor then used as the basis for his Matrix entity Supergirl.
Yeah, it's all a time loop, guys.
I mean, we're currently doing a distant future story in Superman books right now. Maybe she shows up in the distant future again. Yeah, just started. So yeah, I don't want to date this too much. So,
So why don't we move on to the next story? This is the credits list this in the wrong order. So then the next story in it is The Legend Lives On, but the credits indicate that it should be Shootout at Ice Flats, which is just a funny quirk in this whole situation. So this one is, well, it's different. It's very different. This is the aforementioned Space Pirates one.
Yes, with no Supergirl at all.
I'm gonna plant my flag. This is my favorite.
Oh yeah,
It's so stupid and I love it. Like it's just I love a big cosmic understanding, and I love the way this one, the Supergirl story, has become almost, it's been twisted and like to a point that parts of it are unrecognizable.
oh yeah.
And
Like this is a
it's so
Twilight
good.
Zone episode.
It's so
Like,
good.
yeah, like this is just a straight up Twilight Zone episode where like this pirate ship they find one of their crew members dead, and she was trying to carve what appears to be the Superman S into the ground, and this causes one of them who just knows the stories of Dead Earth to recount the story of Superman, and then after that Supergirl, who she bastardizes them to being like a romantic pairing, and all like. Although, which is funny because, again, the 90s Supergirl does actually marry an alternate reality version of Superman. So
I like her being the mother of Superboy. I like her actually being Lois Lane or
Yeah.
Lois Lane.
Lois
Lois
Lane,
Lane.
yeah.
Which is great. Like, yeah, I love
this one, by the way, definitely had that kind of just we're going to use a lot of space vernacular.
Oh yeah, 100%. I do like that the one that knows everything is a Tamaranian. I thought that was a great touch.
Yeah.
They could have just made generic aliens, but they did not, and I liked that a lot.
Right. And like the half Durlin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So no, it was really cool. With the Legion of Titanic Heroes, I'm 99% certain that is just a like perversion of the Titans and the Legion of Superheroes.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's you can so
but you never know in
because this is
DC.
90s Legion of Superheroes. Also, they
Yeah.
all have the stripe design,
Yeah.
which is the like the thing you can tell is the Legion of Superheroes part of the design.
Yeah. See, like again, that could be a thing in DC history, and I would not know. So maybe I don't know. But yeah. No, I love it. I like the big stupid misunderstanding of the whole thing. Like it's just very funny to me. So yeah.
Yeah, we should note that this one is written by Barbara Kessel with Carl Kessel. Kiesel? I don't know. I'm not sure how you say it.
I say Kessel.
You say Kessel. Yeah. Kessel is how it reads to me, but like as a kid, I always said Kiesel.
Because of the Kessel Run and spelled differently.
And I want to say they got divorced at a certain point. I'd have to look that one up. But back then they were doing this was I think my first exposure to Barbara, but she would then go on to do Sojourn for CrossGen Comics.
Yes. And did it very well. I like Sojourn. That's like probably my favorite CrossGen book, but yeah.
I liked CrossGen in general.
Me too. Dude, honestly, I'm a CrossGen defender. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely talk about the sigils as a Superman analog thing if we wanted to. There's quite a few characters who do very well in that comparison, and just a lot of them just have like a glowing symbol on their chest that gives them Superman-like powers. Anyway, so this story, however, is, like I said, it's a Twilight Zone type situation. They see the dead symbol and they all get really fucking paranoid, and then they just start turning on each other. And at the very end of it all, because this, like, aside from just like extra opportunities to be like, well, it might not have been Superman, it could have been Supergirl, and maybe Supergirl's still alive because she was a protoplasmic entity, blah blah blah, which is a situation where they're like, I guess she could still be alive to murder us, which is like a part where I'm like, how does the super family get that reputation?
And the funny thing is they do mention that she refuses to kill. So this one does remember that lore. And so they're like, oh, it must be the one of us that refuses to kill. But I'm like, but the problem is one of you was killed. I'm like,
Yeah,
that is,
right.
And then, but it's great because in the end, honestly, the last page or last panel really answers all my problems. So I thought that tied it up really nicely. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Right. Yeah. So it's revealed that what she was actually trying to carve was a symbol for a hazardous chemical that is supposed to be only loaded by robots and will cause extreme aggression, delusions, and paranoia.
It's
Da,
great.
da, da.
It's so stupid. I love it.
Yeah. Before we move on, I do want to call out specifically the panel where they show there was the one time Supergirl went crazy and nearly destroyed the world. They called it the Crisis. Two things I love about this. One, the fact that they called it the Crisis, which at this point in DC Comics very explicitly was Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Right.
Even though there were plenty of crises before, and now there have been so many crises since.
Yeah.
In the 90s, Crisis meant one thing.
Right.
But two, this outfit is a version of Supergirl's look. She had this berserker form that she did adopt every now and then, particularly when she found out that Lex Luthor Jr. was actually Lex Luthor Sr. So it's fun that they show a fairly accurate shot of a character, but like the context is entirely fucked up.
Did she have that many bracelets and shit? It's like
it looked a lot like it. It's probably not 1-to-1, but
that's
like
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought that was very interesting. Again, my DC history is way weaker than my Marvel history. So I was like, is there another Crisis I forgot about? Like, I literally was like, this book is gaslighting me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we didn't mention the fact that this is Dick Giordano with George Perez on art.
Yeah.
So just in terms of like quality of the team, this is probably the one that has the biggest names.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I really like that Tamarini was involved, because I was like, I bet George is like, I really like drawing Starfire. Can I keep drawing Starfire?
Right.
So, yeah.
I had the same thought.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I like the art. I thought it was really great. So, yeah. It's very 90s, but I like it.
Oh, very
Yeah.
90s.
Jmike, your thoughts?
I just laughed when I got to the last panel because I was like, this was weird. And now it kind of makes sense, but it's still a very weird like episode kind of. I did laugh out loud when I saw like the danger thing, and I was like, oh, there, that's what it is. Yeah, it's very, like he said, it's very, very interesting chapter. Still, no Supergirl shows up in this entire episode, and I was like, why is he here?
Well, this is the one that has the most tenuous connection, for sure.
Like, why is he here? I mean, I get it that it's like the boogeyman, ooh, Supergirl, ooh,
Yeah.
she might show up and get us. And I was like, maybe like they had come across like the new Super Goo girl. Maybe they had come across her while they were out there traveling. So I'm guessing all these stories kind of take place in the same time span, just in
Not
different
really.
Parts of the galaxy.
They're all over and at different times. It's kind of just a blank canvas for any story to be like, yeah, whatever. Because some will actually have like set dates, and those are very different. Like you can tell that these they really don't want you to even care. It's just like Earth is gone. Like this is the far future.
Don't worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
on Jmike, what I thought was going to happen in Titan and Supergirl is I thought this powder they found was going to be super goo, like dehydrated into powder. And she was actually writing her own symbol to tell them who she was. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then it's like, no, it has nothing to do with Supergirl. They just utterly spiraled from Superman to Supergirl because they said Superman, well, there's no men here. And I'm like, well, if it's a shapeshifter, they're like, no, it's a girl. It's got to be Supergirl. I was like, all right. Like, that was pretty funny to me.
It was like it's a nice little weird story.
Yeah, definitely.
I keep saying weird because it's a weird.
Well, like you said, Case, it's Twilight Zone. It's very Twilight Zone. Like, yeah.
And these back two chapters are way shorter than the first one.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. So why don't we move on to the last story, which is Shootout at Ice Flats. This one is story by Joe Lansdale and Neil Barrett Jr. with pencils by Robert Teranishi.
Are we sure it's the last one? Because I could have sworn the book said this is supposed to be the second one.
Right now, right?
This one, the art is very 90s. I'm just going to start there.
Yep.
It's the most 90s art, I think. The previous one was pretty 90s, but this feels straight up. Yeah. And this sounds disrespectful, this story, but I have to say, the version of this that I read, my favorite part was that there was an old ad for DC Comics in the middle of it with like what's going on this week, and I was like, oh my god, like time capsule back into what's going on.
Right.
I sat there and read
Sovereign
that for
7.
way too long. Like, I was like, yay. But no, I thought this was kind of a cool story. It's very like, sci-fi western, it's that traditional sci-fi western like trope, also kind of tangentially related to Supergirl. But interesting. I liked it. I think it's the one. I think it's the concept I liked the most. I thought it was a cool idea.
I
will say that like the part I liked the most about this is like I was trying to figure out like where she got the ruler from, and I was like, oh wait, is that actually a ruler? And I was like, wait, she just beat some guy like butt with a ruler that she was carrying on her hip. And I was like, wait, they don't have guns?
Oh, they have a gun.
Oh, yeah, they have a gun. I was like, wait,
it's one of these gun things.
I love it because it literally, I missed it the first time, but it just says staple-o-matic on it. I was just like, I completely missed that part. I was like, why did the gun work? And then I went back and read it. I'm like, oh, okay. Like...
Yeah. So for listeners, the story is about this like ice western town, or like it's like it's a town where these like minotaur people live in conjunction with regular humans, and this one sheriff, who is this blonde woman who obviously looks like Supergirl, is the peacemaker, and the human community are called toolers, and they just have like all this like old junk from Earth.
Right, exactly. The link with Supergirl is a necklace she's given from her mother, I believe, to help protect her.
Mm-hmm. Which the mother's interpretation of everything, including like it has telekinesis. That means water powers.
That stands for Sardine Girl.
Yeah.
She is made of this super scientific mud. Yeah, I like the super scientific mud. Poor thing. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, good thing I got this gun. That's very funny.
But I will say this is actually kind of cool because it is sort of like a relic in like the Catholic sense of a relic, because it is supposed to be like a shard of the Matrix entity Supergirl, which is kind of cool to think could just be a thing that's out there. And if you are in a situation where she deems it appropriate and you believe in her, you can be empowered by psychokinetic abilities. Which is to say that her mom gives her this relic, and when she goes to face off in a Western style shootout against this like group of Minotaur bandits.
Well, it's because like she like the one guy in the bar pinched her butt, and then she slapped him with the ruler, and he was like, "My big sister's gonna get you."
Yeah. Well, yes.
Can we talk about the other weapons they're wielding, like a hairdryer with the cord cut and an electric razor? Like, I love it.
The most lethal weapon is a sling.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, I do like it, and also like it does lean into the angel portion of it, because this is all the fire powers, you know what I mean, of the Supergirl. Like that's really what we're addressing with this, and I thought that was kind of cool. Combining the fire with the staple gun, like it's so cool.
Yeah, so this woman starts getting like pelted with rocks, and in her moment of desperation, the amulet comes to life and empowers the staple gun so that she like pins these like cow people against all the boards. Like the barns or whatever, and then freaks them out and causes them to run off.
Yeah. Also, like, I like the absolutely hideous mounts they have. These are the most horrific things I've ever seen. Like, oh my god, they're awful looking.
Yeah, they're like dinosaurs, but they have beaks like some kind of like parrot.
Yeah, and they're just dirty, like just absolutely filthy. Like, yeah. But no, I thought this was kind of like a fun one. Like if Firefly leaned more into aliens, this would be something that happened in like season 3 of Firefly or something like that. You know?
For real.
Like 100%.
Oh, I just noticed that it actually shot out a staple when she clicked it the first time.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. And all the weapons have their cords cut off.
Yeah.
So I was like, great. What were they planning on doing? Well, anyway.
I love it. It's so stupid. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know what they're trying to say about this backwards world that has like no technology and just junk, but it is certainly a fun kind of Western story.
Yeah. I like the salvage aspect of it. Like, you see they have like in one of the I think it's it's when she's at home, they have a TV on the shelf, and there's no electricity. So why is it there? You know what I mean? Like, is
right.
This, like what's this going on? There's a stand mixer. Like, I was looking in the background a lot. I think that's really cool. And then also like we get a shot of a blacksmith who's actually making horseshoes, because that's practical. I just think that's kind of cool. Also, is he making horseshoes for the cow people or for their actual mounts? I don't know. So, questions. I have questions.
Right. And then we should note at the very end, the sheriff drops the pendant, gives it to a little girl, but she says, "I might need this gun thing again." And like the little girl like lights up with like the fires of hope as the very last shot.
Yeah, definitely. I thought again, as a whole, these stories were pretty fun. Like again, goofy, completely alternate things that have no weight whatsoever, but I like them. They're fun.
Yeah. So now that we've kind of like looked through this all, what are overall impressions of the annual? Like, how is this as a package? Like, was this worth your money in 1996? Like, we're looking at a scan of it because I have the original somewhere, but like, it's not available on any of the apps right now, and so we can see that it was for $2.95. Was this worth $3 in 1996 to you?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, it was fun.
I would have gotten it.
I mean, I spent
actually like $3 for like this is quite a bit of story. It's like
yeah. Honestly, it really made me interested in the rest of the annuals. I'm like, how weird does this get? Is kind of what I was thinking, like so. But no, I liked it as a whole. Annuals again can be stories that again don't have to have too much weight in the overarching stuff, so you get to have fun, and it was fun. So, mission accomplished.
Nice, Jmike. What were your overall impressions?
It's a fun little Elseworld story or stories, collection of stories. Like I really the cowboy one is my favorite one. Okay, it's by far my favorite.
So that's a good point. Like this is an anthology. Like is this served well by being an anthology? Like is there enough space for all these stories?
Yeah. I mean, because out of these stories by themselves, I don't think a lot of people would have touched these. It's a little too weird, but together and with the theme of them like being lost, like the Dead Earth stories, I think more people are willing to give them a chance. Maybe.
I definitely think the last story could have used a couple more pages, but other than that, no, I mean, I think it was a fine format for these stories. Again, lightweight, fun.
Yeah, like we're going to look at other Legends of Dead Earth annuals for the rest of the Super family, and I think this is the only one that is an anthology like this.
Oh, that's weird.
I'll have to double check on that one. The Bizarre World might be, but I don't remember that one as well, and I haven't reread that one yet.
Did they ever like mention like how long it's been, or do we have like a run-in with Martian Manhunter? Like
some of them are much more specific about the age gap, but like I said, there are other ones that do not care.
Martian Manhunter is on his Luke Skywalker arc where he just got like a cloak and he's wandering around the wilderness.
All right, yes, but spoiler, we're not going to encounter the Martian Manhunter in the issues that we're looking at.
That's awesome.
And we haven't actually like looked at these other ones, so it's hard to really like compare them. I will note, so we're going to be looking at obviously the Superman books. So there's like, I think 4 of them there. And they're all very different, which will be a lot of fun. And we're also going to look at the Superboy book, and I'm very excited to like look at those. Each of them is a very different story, and that's one of the things that was really exciting about Legends of Dead Earth. Like it was an excuse to do like very strange concepts. Like the Superboy one is a colony. It's about a colony world that adopts like Aztec culture as their like go-to, and he becomes like a symbol of a sun god.
That's pretty cool.
Like. There's one about like a world that has become it is probably Palestine metaphor now that I think about it, about a colonialist power that paints themselves as the victim while being a huge aggressor.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
90s.
When you could say some stuff.
But,
or couldn't say some stuff.
Should you? Like, yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So like they are going to be very different ones. So I guess last question: if you didn't how much? What does this require? Like foreknowledge? I'm using this as an opportunity to sort of reach out to people who haven't necessarily been on the show before. Like Keith, you're an exception to that rule because this is the Supergirl one, and I was like, well, obviously we're gonna have Keith on for the Supergirl one.
Word.
but like, is this a good like intro just to like a comic book where you're like, oh, do you like Supergirl? Or like, do you have a Supergirl t-shirt, but you know nothing about the character? Here's a comic. Does this work in that way?
No.
Right.
Like, absolutely not.
So quick.
A lot of the charm of this book is the fact that we have a lot of knowledge of Supergirl, and we know like, oh, these stories are incorrect, ha ha ha. You know what I mean? Like, so that would be lost on new fans. It would also probably give you a completely wrong idea of what Supergirl's like, especially because it's not even the same Supergirl we currently have. So it is definitely way more of a deep cut for me. Like, and fun. Yeah.
Totally fair. Jmike, do you agree on that point?
Yes. 100%. It's not like he said, this is a very deep cut because it's the protoplasmic weird Supergirl thing. Everyone all thinks Supergirl, you think Kara Zor-El. This ain't Kara Zor-El.
But I would argue that this one doesn't require you to know that much about the protoplasmic Supergirl. If you're coming in as a Kara fan, it's not like the decay of time on the stories
that's
like
fair.
It doesn't ruin
Yeah.
that whole situation. Like,
But for me,
Oh, go ahead.
when I saw the cover, my mind immediately went to, oh, it's the weird Supergirl.
it's super good. Yeah.
Super good. Yeah, and also like if I'm going to recommend a book and someone interested in Supergirl, I'm going to pick one with Supergirl. Like, you know, like
Now that is fair. That's very fair.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, like I recommend Superman Secret Identity to people as like a good like intro to Superman book, even though it's like not technically Superman.
Right.
I told someone to read The Nail. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Well, that's a good one to recommend.
Mm-hmm. Not really all about Superman, but it is a Superman story. So
Yeah. That said, would you recommend this annual to someone who is more versed in comics?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have a good time, you got nothing else to do. Want to hear weird little stories that will make you chuckle? Here's this annual.
When I recommend comics to friends of mine who read comics on the regular, I do so in the interest of having a conversation with them later about it. And yes, I do want to talk about this. So yeah, I would totally recommend it. Yeah.
And thus the format of this show.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, I also would recommend this to people. I think this is a fun group of stories. I think that the Shootout at Ice Flats is the thinnest of them. It's a cute little moment that I'm like, oh, that actually would be fun just to introduce into like DC lore. Or could you imagine if you're doing a DC role-playing game and just like a magic item was the little amulet of Supergirl?
Like some alternate version of the Green Lantern Corps, just pieces of Supergirl all around it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I rather like it. I honestly am surprised I haven't done a Superman analog on the Surrogate, probably because it is a character that is like doesn't really have a name in the actual story. But I have written the Superman analog threads for a number of the Legends of Dead Earth analog characters, so I should probably go back and do her at least.
Yeah, I think there's enough there. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably use the entire like story in terms of episode art.
Right. There's some good shots. There's some really great shots.
There's really good shots. Her flying, her doing some very Superman-ish type things. Like, yeah. Well, this was a fun issue. I'm glad that Keith that we had you on to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here always. So
awesome. Well, for listeners who would like to know more about you, Keith, talk about We Have Issues and everything.
Yeah, so I am a podcaster. My podcast is called We Have Issues. I'm part of the Certain POV network of shows. So you can find me basically where you find Case and Jmike. So what I do is I do, thankfully, weekly reviews of comics now. I was doing bi-weekly and it was killing me to review 70 comics at once. So I'm back to weekly, so maximum 40 books a week. I just do quick reviews, usually about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes a book. Because there's so many comics out there, I got to the point where I was like, I want to review them all. They all deserve a spotlight. So I'm going to give them a spotlight, even if it's short. So yeah, if you're looking for a quick fire review of comics, I'm a great place to go. And we only do positive reviews. I don't bash things. So if you're looking for drama, don't come into my show. except for this most recent episode, which I'm not going to get into. But yeah, once again, on Blue Sky at wehaveissues.bluesky.social. You can find me at keithhasissues.bluesky.social, which I hope to start using more of my own personal one. Yeah, it's hard to manage more than one. So
yeah, for real.
yeah. Other than that, I want to throw out quick, because we were talking about it, and specifically in your questions about, good story for Supergirl, the new Supergirl fans. I will once again always plug Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is the best Supergirl story ever made. But also I want to give a little bit of shout out to Future State Superwoman, Kara Zor-El Superwoman, which is only a 2-issue one. It is also an alternate future one, and it's done by the Marguerites, Bennett and Sauvage, and it's what this and another book that you should check out, Future State House of L, are what got me into Superman comics again.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing up Future State, because that is a very similar project to this, where it's indeterminate levels of future. I mean, Future State had some where it's like very specific ones, but there's a bunch that are like, hey, in the far future, the House of L stuff.
Yeah, I really liked those. And again, those got me back into it. So those would be a better one for me to recommend. Hey, are you interested? This is a good one to look into. And then last thing, just because I love me an independent comic, just the nature of this book, I want to recommend a book called Vanishing Point from Mad Cave. It's an anthology series. It's alternate distant futures of the Earth, and they're all twisted sci-fi Twilight Zone style stories. They're all standalone. They're amazing. I got to give that recommendation because Mad Cave is doing the best work in the industry today. So I had to throw that out there too.
Yeah, and that sounds like very much in line with this issue.
Yeah, it's really, really good. There's one that's like a twisted, dark version of the Jetsons, and I'll just leave it at that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, people should absolutely check out We Have Issues and follow you on all the social medias. Thank you again for coming on. It's so great having you here, man.
Yeah, always. I'm always glad to be here. So.
Yeah. Jmike, where can people find you and follow you?
Well, I am on Blue Sky at j5-bluesky.social. I'm also on the Discord, where I'll be, I was going to say I'll be talking about Supergirl, but I won't, because it's too much of a deep cut and people don't know. But yeah, I'm also there, mingling and like hanging out in the shadows, the background of the server. At me and I will answer you.
Yes, and the Discord server is probably the best way to contact all three of us, frankly. Like, you can find a link on our website or in the show description. The Discord is a really fun place to be. We're having great conversations about comics, video games, pop culture. We have a section just for venting, and Lord knows this is a time to vent. But yeah, it's a great place to just come and hang out, and we're really inviting and try to have a good vibe for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And if you've ever wanted to be on a podcast, there's opportunities, which I'm sure Case will talk about in a moment.
Yeah, we are always looking for guests. Particularly, we have a new project that is coming out. It is, and by is coming out, I mean it's out. It's been going at this point by the time this episode drops for several months. It is called Trade School. It is a really cool project where guest hosts get to come on and monologue for 5 to 15 minutes about a comic book trade paperback that they love. And I actually led off the series by talking about Supergirl Mini Happy Returns, which is the closing arc to the Peter David Supergirl run. So that's a good episode to check out. But Keith is on episode 2, and by the time this drops, I think both you and I both will have had like our second episodes having had dropped, because it's going to be a weekly show.
Yeah, awesome. And you can see the pattern of what I'm going to be reviewing becomes readily apparent. So
yes, you definitely have a theme going that I won't spoil right now.
Yeah, I'm a 40-year-old man. I'll just say that. So yeah.
Meanwhile, you can find me on most social media at Case Aiken. You can find me on Instagram at Quetzalcoatl5, because I was pretentious in high school and that was my AIM screen name. It's QUETZALCOATL5. Boom. You can find the show at certainpov.com or on our YouTube channel, where this might be where you're listening to. Statistically, it's actually probably where you're listening to it. So you know about the YouTube channel at that point. But the YouTube channel is great, and we're doing lots of really cool stuff there. Many of those things, however, begin on our Patreon. And so I need to thank some patrons, because they are helping make this show possible. So I'm going to go ahead and thank those who joined at the executive producer level. And that is Micah McCaw, Carter Hallett, Sean Muir, Lee Greger, Memento Young, Logan Crowley, Joe Mastropiero, Casey and Nancy Aiken, Adam Samter, and Keith Lehtinen.
Me.
These are the people who joined at the executive producer level. You can come and join the Patreon, even at the free tier. We're doing really cool stuff. I'm doing essays on Mondays and Tuesdays. We're putting out all kinds of material just to get it out to the patrons, because we appreciate them and want them to get first access and anything that we're doing as part of certain POV media. But at the paid tiers, you get advanced notice clips of like what are coming out for the shows, and we're developing more and more stuff, and you'll get the shout outs and all that. That's at patreon.com/certain POV media. So please check that out. Otherwise, well, next time we're gonna be talking about another Legend of Dead Earth issue. I'm not sure which one it's gonna be, so stay tuned for that.
Secrets.
But until then, stay super, man.
Digging for Kryptonite is a weekly podcast series hosted by yours truly, Anthony Desiato, examining Superman's vast mythology across time and media. If you have a favorite story, creator, or adaptation, chances are we've covered it over the past 200-plus episodes. I've interviewed creators including Mark Waid, Dan Jurgens, Jeff Loeb, Joe Kelly, and many more. Whether you're a lifelong Superman fan like me, or you're new to the character, we have you covered. Subscribe to Digging for Kryptonite wherever you get podcasts, and remember, it's about what you do. It's about action.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.